This is Unit 1, Diversity in the Living World. Diversity in the living world in the sense the different things we find in the living world. So this slide is basically the introduction, nothing much to learn. Just read through the NCERT and you'll get a grasp of it. It's not that difficult, okay? So diversity in the living world mainly deals with systematic and monumental description of life forms brought in, because of these necessities, detailed systems of identification, nomenclature, and classification are brought into being. The wonderful, wonderful scientists have conducted a lot of studies on this, so let's just dive into this chapter without stopping. I need you to see this man. This man, named Ernst Mayr, is from Germany. He is a biologist. He's actually called Darwin of the 20th century. Was one of the 100 greatest scientists of all time. The main thing I want you to get from this slide is Mayr was awarded 3 prizes widely regarded as the triple crown of biology: the Balzan Prize, the International Prize for Biology, and the Crafoord Prize. He died in the year 2004. So, I needed to know this man. This man named Ernst Mayr is basically, he contributed a lot in the biological field. So, you'll find his name here and there. Please remember his face. Important. He was given so very much honored prize, that is, so please look at this chapter, the living world. In the living world, basically I have divided, and as well as the NCERT has divided this chapter into 2 parts. First is diversity in the living world, and next is the taxonomic categories. Diversity in the living world, in this slide particularly, this is also the introduction. You think the surroundings around you, how is it? The beauty of a galloping horse, of the migrating birds, valley of flowers, attacking shark evokes awe and a deep sense of wonder. We are like, oh, how is this? Haven't you even thought? Oh, just human could just breathe through the gills and sharks could just walk on land. Why not? These are the questions that are gonna be solved, are gonna be answered in the upcoming videos. So make sure tune till the end. The study part is here. Diversity in the living world. So we'll go through kind of every line in the NCERT, and I'll tell you to mark certain things which are like kind of very, very important. So please mark those things. Make sure you read your NCERT just to be on the safe side, so that you know everything, like every deal of the NCERT. Okay, so let's go straight into it. Diversity in the living world. If you look around, you will see a large variety of living organisms, be it potted plants, insect, birds, your pet, or any other animal and plant. There are also several organisms that you cannot see with the naked eye, but they are all around you. If you were to increase the area that you make observation in, range and variety of organisms that you see would increase. Obviously, like if we are seeing like dogs, then there are classifications of dogs as well. If I'm saying dogs, maybe a German Shepherd comes to you, but then Dalmatian is a dog too, a Pomeranian is a dog too, right? So there are so many diversity in dogs itself. Like if you say a human, Indians are wonderfully whitish textured, while Americans lack a pigment called melanin. So basically we are humans, but then we still differ. Whether be it lack of pigmentation, or whether be it facial features, the hair color, everything. Humans are also diverse. Likewise, animals are diverse, plants are diverse. So that's basically the summary of this paragraph in front of you. So the main thing you have to mark is each different kind of plant, animal, or organism that you see represent a species. The number of species that are known and described range between, this is so very important, 1.7 to 1.8 million. Now, let me just clear one thing. As a person who has studied the NCERT, this value might change in some other chapter that I'll inform you as we actually go through these chapters. I will make you go through the chapters. One thing you have to keep in mind, that in living world, the value of the number of species that are known and described is given as 1.7 to 1.8. Just as I said, and just as everyone says, whatever value is given in NCERT, go with that value, even though the current value may differ, because the NCERT was written actually so long ago. So But you have to learn the values given in NCERT, even though it's from long ago, okay, if you need marks. So go with this. The description may come for another value, so don't get confused. So the number of species that are known and described range between in diversity in the living world is 1.7 to 1.8. Also, here we are introduced to a particular term named biodiversity. So, what is the definition of biodiversity? Please note the number and types of organisms present on the earth is called biodiversity. That is pretty much the definition of biodiversity. You don't have to rack your brains over the definition, but in the boards, I'm talking about the boards. If you have boards, you have to actually write the definition, so you have to learn the definition. NEET oriented also, I'm sorry to say, but you have to learn the definition. So, we are introduced to a new term called biodiversity, and the definition is the number and type of organism present on the earth. Simple as that, okay? There is a need to standardize the naming of living organisms such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. This process is called nomenclature. Nomenclature, let me tell you, is basically naming. Like, nomenclature is naming. I'm not sure whether you have learned it yet, but in chemistry, you will learn it. But in chemistry, there is a particular topic called nomenclature where you actually name compounds. In chemistry, you name compounds, but in biology, you name people. You name animal, you name plant. Okay? So that's pretty much. Obviously, nomenclature or naming is only possible when the organism is described correctly and we know to what organism is the name attached to. Suppose I come and say, okay, I saw an animal with whiskers. Wonder what it is. And you'll be like, okay, whiskers and I'm like, okay, only whiskers. And you'll be like, what? Lions have whiskers, tigers have whiskers, cats have whiskers. If I just say whiskers, how will you know whether I'm talking about a lion? I'm not telling about the height, I'm not telling about any other features. I'm just like, that animal has whiskers. I saw that. Until I tell you the height or maybe the way the animal behaved, its external features, you won't know what exactly I'm trying to talk about. You won't be able to name the animal I saw. So you have to actually identify the animal before naming it, right? So that's it. Naming is only possible when the organism is described correctly and we know to what organism the name is attached to. That is identification. Once you identify, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's. So the next thing we are going to go is, in order to facilitate the study, the number of scientists have established procedures to assign a scientific name to each known organism. This is acceptable to biologists all over the world. For plants, scientific names are based on agreed principles and criteria for plants which are provided in the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. Important. You may ask, how are animals named? Animal taxonomists have evolved International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. Now, my dear friends, you have to learn the full form. That's a given. But. If I tell me the full form of ICBN, you'll be like, International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. Listen to that audio again. I said International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. Wrong. It's International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. And for ICZN, it's International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. Okay? This is where 99% of everyone makes mistake, or maybe 100% everyone, unless you're extraordinary. Okay? Because I used to make mistakes until my NEET. So, please, you're not like me. Just learn it. It's like for botanical nomenclature and of zoological. My friends begged me to say this particular point. This particular point is so important because you won't know where you're going wrong. You'll be just like, oh, this is so easy. And when you lose marks, it's so sad because this would have been a scoring question. And then you lost it because brain just went blur on that for and off. Okay? So please take note on this. So basically the summary summarizes that if you say that, okay, I saw an animal with whiskers, had black stripes and kind of looked little orangish, you know who? That's tiger, the national animal of India. Okay? You have to know that. So, description of any organism should enable the people to arrive at the same name. So, if you name a tiger, the scientific name of a tiger is Panthera tigris. You'll come on to it later. But if I describe such an animal, if a person who knows the scientific name, he should say Panthera tigris, which is a tiger, and that is a universally acclaimed name. With that being said, we'll go on to the next paragraph. Biologists follow universally accepted principles to provide scientific names to known organisms. Each name has two components, the generic name and the specific epithet. This system of providing a name with two components is called binomial nomenclature, given by none other than Carlos Linnaeus. My people who is watching this, Carlos Linnaeus is a very interesting person. If you actually research about him, you're gonna find his name in almost every chapter. Okay, so Carlos Linnaeus. Here, generic name, specific epithet, binomial nomenclature. This will be kind of new if you haven't already learned. If you have learned, this might be a revision going on. Great, but okay, let's just go. Scientific name of mango is written as Mangifera indica. Please note, Mangifera indica is the scientific name of mango. Scientific is like the official name of organism. You know what is our official name? Homo sapiens. Anyways, let us see how it's a binomial name. In this name, Mangifera indica, Mangifera represents the genus, that is generic name, and in Mangifera indica, indica refers to a particular species, that is the specific epithet. Okay, now what you have to understand, really keep your eyes, ears open. Okay, there are universal rules of nomenclature. These are actual rules. You don't wanna violate these rules. Okay, so learn this as it is, because this is for sure asked question. Biological names are generally in Latin, written in italics, generally in Latin, written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. They are saying that if you are naming something, I'm gonna name it in my Latin language, because we have accepted Latin as the language of naming things. Suppose a plant is found in Africa for the first time, you're not gonna give it an African name, you're going to give it the Latinized name, irrespective of the fact that it was from Africa you first found out. Okay, you're gonna make it Latinized. That's it. Second one. The first word in a biological name represents the genus, while the second component denotes the specific epithet. Like Mangifera indica, Mangifera represents the genus, while indica represents the specific epithet, or in case a particular species. Okay, now the third one is both the words in a biological name, when handwritten, are separately underlined or printed in italics to indicate their Latin origin. So, biological name of mango, that is Mangifera indica. Okay, both the words when handwritten, I'm writing it by hand. Okay, so they are separately underlined. They should be underlined separately or printed. If you're printing, like in this book, it's written in italics, right, to indicate the Latin origin. Why is it printed in italics? Because to indicate the Latin origin, because the name is in Latin. Okay, now both the words when you're writing, please make sure you write the first letter in capital and the second species name in small letter. Underline it separately. Separately is very important. What I used to do, I used to just join. -1. Okay. Now, the fourth and the last rule which we have to follow is the first word denoting the genus starts with a capital letter, while the specific epithet starts with a small letter. It can be illustrated with the example of Mangifera indica. Yeah, obviously, see Mangifera indica written. Look at this. The first word starts with a capital letter, first word in a genus, We told, right? Mangifera represents the genus while Indica represents the species. Therefore, in a genus, name starts with a capital letter, and in species, it starts with a small letter. Okay? Please keep this in mind. For NEET aspirants also, this might come as options, and for those aiming only for the boards, please keep in mind. What you have to understand from this, that in case you're going to write the author's name or the one who found it, please write his or her name in the abbreviated form. Okay? Because Mangifera indica Linn, Carolus Linnaeus. So it was first described by Linnaeus, right? So you have to write Mangifera indica Linn in an abbreviated form, and you don't write Mangifera indica Linnaeus, okay? It's Mangifera indica Linn. Please take note. This is important. This is an unspoken rule. It's a rule though. Let's move on to the next topic we are going to be covering. It's classification. First, I told you have to identify something and then you name it, right? You have to identify something to name it. And after naming, what? Are cats same as dogs? No. We'll put the cats here. Okay. And then we'll put the dogs here. Okay. And then we put the lion here. It's so confusing. Okay, maybe that didn't look like a lion. Anyways, we have to classify so that it kind of becomes easier. Classification is a process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. Please, those are going to write the boards. You obviously have to be writing the theory, so this kind of looks important. Learn it. For example, we easily recognize groups such as plants or animals, dogs, cats, or insect. The moment we use any of these terms, we associate certain characters with the organism in that group. What image do you see when you think of a dog? Obviously, each of us will see dogs and not cats. Oh, that's such an obvious sentence. But now, if you were to think of Alsatians, we know what we are talking about. For your information, Alsatians are actually German Shepherds. They should have just written German Shepherd. Okay. So we see dogs, and then there are different varieties of dogs, right? That's what they're actually planning. They're trying to tell us. So yeah, I think we got that message. The scientific term for categories is called taxa. You have to learn for any category. So rice is a category, rice is a taxa, but then one of rice category is basmati rice, okay? So basmati is also a taxa. Any category, anything is a taxa, okay? Please don't get confused, you can just call everything taxa. We learned in the previous slide that scientific term for categories is taxa. Based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process of classification is taxonomy. I've already mentioned that after identifying a certain plant, animal, organism, we give them name and then we identify. Obviously, we identify and then we give them name and then we classify them. And how we classify them, that process, its classification is based on characteristics, okay? So that process is called taxonomy, okay? So please keep this in mind. And so the important things that go along with this is external, internal structure, along with the structure of cell, development process, ecological information of organism are essential form of the basis of modern taxonomic studies. Okay, now the question might come like, what are the processes that are basic to taxonomy? What are the processes? Characterization, identification, classification, nomenclature are the processes that are basic to taxonomy. Very important. Okay, now taxonomy is not something new. Human beings have always been interested in knowing more and more about the various kinds of organisms, particularly with reference to their own use. Earliest classifications were based on the use of various organisms. Please keep this in mind. This is not that much important. You have to just read through. But let me remind you, whatever is bold lettered, please read thrice. Thrice, not even twice, thrice. Okay? Human beings were since long not only interested in knowing more about different kinds of organisms. Obviously, human character is curious. And the diversity, but also the relationship among them. This branch of study was referred to as systematics. They were also interested in knowing different kinds of organism, but they were more interested in knowing how the different kinds of organism were related to each other, and this system is systematics. The word systematics is derived from the Latin word systema, which means systematic arrangement of organism. Okay. Linnaeus used Systema Naturae as the title of his publication. See, I told you, right? You will find this person everywhere. The chapter is not even started, and he said so. Linnaeus used Systema Naturae as the title of his publication. Very, very important. The scope of systematic was later enlarged to include identification, nomenclature, classification, which we have already learned before. Systematics takes into account evolutionary relationship between organisms. Told you, right? Systematics is derived from a Latin word systema. Okay. Till here, it has to be, like really, really easy. It has to be really simple because we haven't even started. The game hasn't even begun, and the game begins here. And wait for my part 2. Okay, because that is so much. We kind of finished half. That's the basic, and what you have to learn is what we have learned so far into application. So make sure to watch this fully. Thank you.